Hello, and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, sci-fi, and horror novels. I'm Chad.
And I'm Evan.
You are listening to our recap and discussion of The Wastelands, Book 3 in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King.
All right, Chad, what did you think of it?
Man, and this book was wild,
Yeah, it was really,
like
really good.
off of the chain. Like most books have like Helm's Deep. That was the part that you're like, man, oh, that book rocked. This book has 5 Helm's Deep. It is a string of Helm's Deeps together. Like when I was reading the recap that you wrote, just like preparing myself for this episode, I was just like, dang,
Yeah, like
double,
kept
triple,
forgetting about all the
quadruple,
crazy things that
yeah,
are happening. Yeah, it's wild.
it's wild, like
Yeah.
off the chain. And I just gotta say, like, I feel like it's a blessing beyond lucky to have been introduced to both the Fall of the Babel books and the Dark Tower series in the same year. It's like discovering C.S. Lewis and Tolkien the same year, or like Rothfuss and Sanderson. It's just wow. I'm left awestruck at my luck. Probably not luck, maybe just like choosing a really good partner who knows good works of literature. Because
I mean,
man,
I didn't even know about the books of Babel. We that was a shot in the dark for both of us. But I mean, I knew about the Dark Tower, obviously,
yeah,
and
yeah, you're a
books,
Stephen King boy.
books 1 and 2. Like, I mean, book 1 is very cryptic and weird, and just it's not it's not a super good representation of the entire series.
Not at all.
Like, but it's still really cool. But then book 2 gets we're getting on track here. Things are happening, but it's still odd. It's still very weird, and you're still not quite sure like what is the goal here. But
Right.
now in the Wastelands, we have the quartet. It's formed. We've got Oi, which is, in my opinion, the most important part of the
Of
entire
course.
quartet.
Dude,
Oi,
he's foundational.
Jake.
Jake.
You can talk. Yeah, Oi is great.
I mean, they literally wouldn't have been able to find Jake without Oi. So he is he is a cornerstone of their quartet.
For me personally, The Wastelands is my favorite book in this series, and that's not to say that the rest of them aren't really, really good, because they are. But The Wastelands, just the train, them actually crossing through the Wastelands, and the description of what it looks like out there, like what happened in this area. They kind of allude to a few different things, but it's still kind of a mystery.
Yeah.
And Blaine's not being very informative.
No.
You see just some really intense emotional moments between Roland and Eddie, between Roland and Jake, between Eddie and Susanna, between Susanna and Roland, like
between
everybody,
Oi and Jake,
between
Oi
Jake,
and Roland,
Oi and Roland, Susanna and Jake. Like this is a fellowship. It's a real fellowship, and it took a little bit to get going. Admittedly, halfway through the 3rd book in a 7-book series for the people to get together to go do the thing that they're trying to do.
Right. It takes. I mean, I feel like the first few books are almost like Stephen's filter for like I only want the really hardcore readers who are like with me till the end to get through this. Because like if you're just kind of in like, sometimes I read fantasy, like sometimes reader, the first book probably would have stopped you.
It throws a lot of people off. I've talked to many people that say I just couldn't get through the Gunslinger, or even if they did, they couldn't get through the Drawing of the Three, which is valid, totally fair. But I always feel a little bad because it's like, but you didn't get to the Wastelands, you didn't get to Wizard and Glass, you didn't get to see the end of this whole journey. So yeah, wow, I'm so excited to have this whole chance to talk to you about this magnificent book. But with all of that said, let's go straight into the summary.
Let's do it. The Wastelands begins 5 weeks after the ending of the Drawing of the Three. Roland, Susanna, and Eddie have moved east from the shore of the Western Sea and into the woods of Outworld. After an encounter with a 70-foot cyborg bear named Shardik, they discover one of the 6 mystical beams that connect to the Dark Tower. The trio follow the path of the beam inland to Midworld. Roland now reveals to his quartet that his mind has become divided, and he is slowly losing his sanity. He remembers meeting Jake Chambers in the way station and letting him fall to his death in the mountains. However, he also remembers passing through the desert alone and never meeting Jake. It is soon discovered that when Roland saved Jake from being killed by Jack Mort in 1977, he created a paradox. Jake did not die and thus did not appear in Midworld and travel with Roland. In 1977 New York, Jake Chambers is experiencing exactly the same mental divide, which is causing problems at the private school he attends, as well as angering Jake's cocaine-addled father. Roland burns Walter's jawbone, and the solution to his dilemma is revealed, but to Eddie instead of Roland. Eddie must carve a key that will open the door to New York in 1977. Jake abruptly leaves school and finds a key in a littered vacant lot where a single red rose has bloomed. Jake is able to pass into Roland's world using the key to open a door in an abandoned, haunted house on Dutch Hill in his place and time. This portal ends in a speaking ring in Roland's world. During this crossover, Susanna has sex with an incubus, distracting it while Eddie continues to carve the key, which will allow Jake safe passage to Midworld. Once the group is reunited, Jake's and Roland's mental anguish ends. Roland has now completed the task of bringing companions into his world. Following the path of the beam again, the quartet befriends an unusually intelligent Billy Bumbler, whom Jake names Oi. He becomes the fourth and final member of the quartet. In a small, almost deserted town called River Crossing, Roland is given a silver cross and a courtly tribute by the town's last ancient citizens. The quartet continues on the path of the beam to the city of Lud. Before arriving at Lud, the quartet hear the drum beat from the song Velcro Fly by ZZ Top, playing from the city, although Eddie at first cannot remember where he has heard the rhythm before. Later, the drums are revealed as the God Drums, to which the inhabitants of Lud constantly fight. The ancient, once high-tech city has been ravaged by centuries of war, with the residents being divided into two factions, the Pubes and the Greys. One of the surviving Grey fighters, Gasher, kidnaps Jake by taking advantage of the near accident the team faced while crossing a decaying bridge. Roland and Oi must then track them through a man-made labyrinth in the city and then into the sewers in order to rescue the boy from Gasher and his leader, the TikTok Man. Jake manages to shoot the TikTok Man, leaving him for dead. The quartet is eventually reunited at the Cradle of Lud, a train station which houses a monorail that the travelers use to escape Lud before its final destruction brought about by the monorail's artificial intelligence known as Blaine the Mono. The ageless stranger, an enemy whom the Man in Black warned Roland that he must slay, arrives to recruit the badly injured TikTok Man as his servant. Centuries of system degradation have caused Blaine to go insane. Once the travelers are aboard, it announces its intention to derail itself with them aboard, unless they can defeat it in a riddle contest. The novel ends with Blaine and Roland's quartet speeding through the wastelands, a radioactive land of mutated animals and ancient ruins, created by something that is claimed to have been far worse than a nuclear war, on the way to Topeka, the end of the line.
Well, okay. And I just looked up how long of a wait it was for people between when this book was published and when book 4 was published because of that wild cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Can you guess how long people had to wait?
No.
6 years.
Oh boy. I mean, that kind of puts a feather in Rothfuss's cap.
What do you mean?
I mean,
it's been like 12 years for Roth.
Yeah, but he's only twice as bad. It's not like
it's still pretty bad.
It's not like 1,000 times worse. Like
totally,
looking at someone like Sanderson, he's like, well, I bet you he uses that to help sleep at night.
But that's a cliffhanger, though. I mean, they're speeding along on this psychotic train,
who I loved, by the way. Like, what?
Great. Yeah, tell me about what you thought about him. Yeah.
So as if the story wasn't wild enough, the Blaine situation was out of control and ridiculous.
Yeah.
And surprising too. Like I kind of thought that was gonna be like, yes, they're speeding away, everything's good now, they're aboard the train of safety, and the train of safety is now actively trying to kill them. And they leave the city with Blaine being like, peace out, city, and nukes it basically. But I mean, oh my gosh, I was on the edge of my seat the entire way through this book. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, and as bad as that situation is, when you find out Blaine is actually going to kill itself, it's still a surprise. It's because it seems like Stephen King did a really amazing job at like making the train seem like just another kind of like weird evil character that had wants and needs and desires and stuff. But it's right at the end of the book. No, the train is suicidal. It's going to run them off no matter what. And it's just, you get this feeling of helplessness. Like, I just got my friends together. We just got everybody together. And now we're going 800 miles an hour through this apocalyptic wasteland. And this train is going to run itself to death. Like, oh, man. But then they come into the nick of time, though. And riddle contest, baby. Wouldn't be a fantasy series without a riddle contest.
At first, I thought it was really funny how seriously Roland takes riddles. I was like, this is
Yeah.
kind of just funny. And then it turns out to be just a major part of the story.
Hmm.
I gotta say, one of my favorite scenes of the entire book is Roland kind of just being like, I've had enough of this disrespectful train. And he stands up and he's like, I have not traveled over generations and thousands of miles to be disrespected by an ancient piece of technology that is going bad. And just like, that is willing to, like, what did he say? Like, kill his friend. Because the Blaine kept talking about another train that he had a friendship with or something, that he let
Patricia
die.
or something.
Patricia,
Yeah.
yeah.
Different color train. Yeah.
That's so willing to let his friend go. And he was just like, oh, he called that train out so hard. And I was just like, I was reading it, just like, yes. I think I was standing actually. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Like, I was just, I was all about that.
Well, and then there's some. I think the text says that the train could tell if Roland wasn't being authentic in him calling Blaine out like that. If he would have shown any kind of fear, Blaine would have like killed them anyway and just
Right.
known he wasn't being real about it. So that, I mean, he meant it. He really, really meant it. And even Eddie is just like, what the hell is going on right now?
Which is
That's
a
so
really
funny.
cool. I love it when it's so powerful in a story when someone stands up for like what is right and kind of just says, I don't know what the end result of this is going to be. It very well could be my death, but am willing. I'm unwilling to let this continue. Like, I will stand up to this and just like enough. And it was so satisfying.
Well, were you expecting Jake to come back into the story the way that he did?
Not at all.
Really? That must have been really interesting for you. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Okay, so I really love Roland's dedication to the quartet because he could have lied about the fact that he's going insane and been like, nah, like in most stories, I feel like that's what would have happened, that it would have been this big thing that we discover, like, it's like a party divide. But if anything, it brought the group together more because he was right way up front with them, was like, all right, guys, I'm going insane, take my guns. Um, so I just really liked that aspect of his like dedication to the group that he has formed. And then that leading to Jake being pulled over. And that scene was absolutely
Insane.
insane.
I mean, it
It's
was,
kind of messed up a little bit too. Like,
it's,
Susanna has to have
yeah.
sex with the incubus in order to distract, and it's like it's cool because she kind of is like, no, I'm gonna get. She's like,
I'm
basically
taking
takes.
control of this. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna rape you, and it's like, man, it's problematic, but it was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I read that, it was kind of giving me like, you know, like there's a part in the end of it, um, that's really weird, like in the sewers. And it was like close to, it's not even close to how weird that one scene is. But yeah, wasn't expecting that on my first read through. It kind of
Yeah,
makes, I mean, it makes sense what's going on for sure. I think it's kind of a weakness in the book. I mean, it's good for Susanna to kind of have like that arc kind of close a little bit with like her and Odetta and stuff. And I think I see what it was, but it felt almost like King didn't know what to do with Susanna in that moment. You know, because
yeah,
he has Roland go through the door and save Jake. Ultimately, Eddie's the one that's carving the door out and had to carve the key and everything. And just from reading it, it almost felt like King didn't really know what to do with Susanna in that moment. So just have her have sex with an incubus, I
yeah.
guess.
I
I
wish
mean,
it was
I
like a
wouldn't have picked
mental
that.
struggle or like a power of wills or something, but it seems like,
Yeah, it's
I don't
very
know. It seemed,
unnecessarily graphic and weird.
yeah, and kind of
Yeah.
like undermined her character a little. Like, not, it was just weird. And rubbed me like kind of weird ways, and I was just like, oh, like, I want to like not celebrate her actions, but what she's doing is actually really good. It was very confusing and kind of odd.
Yeah, it's like the character almost benefited from it in like that's the way it was written, but
Yeah,
I didn't.
yeah, no, I
So it's
didn't at
like
all.
whatever.
And
Um,
like, it was never. I thought it was kind of interesting that it was never brought up that Eddie was like, "Hey, did you have to? What happened there? I was busy doing my thing, carving the key, and I saw some weird stuff out of the corner of my eye."
well, did you
Um,
catch that Susanna might be pregnant?
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's a
and
whole. So actually, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and
with
retract what
whom?
I said. I'm gonna go ahead and retract what I said because, yeah,
Oh,
that
right,
that scene actually. Now that I just asked that question, that scene obviously was important. So yeah, never
right.
mind.
And it kept,
Still weird though.
man, the whole pregnancy thing kept. Every time she mentioned it, I got like super nervous for her because I was like, is she have an incubus baby inside of her right now?
We'll see. We'll see what's going on with that. Yeah. just another complication for the quartet.
Oh
The only person
my
that's not
goodness.
complicating this situation is Oi. Can we talk about Oi for a second?
Oh man,
What do
what
you
a
think about Oi?
bright light. Like
Yeah,
if there we kind of needed Oi. Everyone
we
else is
needed
really
Oi.
complicated and struggling and overcoming their inner turmoil and growing, and like Oi is who he is and doesn't need to change at all. He's just perfect the way he is and can continue being that the whole way through the story. It's like what a great
Yeah, I mean,
character.
in the very end,
He's
like
stable.
Oi is like a connection to Midworld, right? Even in the very end, when this is like the second or third to last page, when Blaine says, "Okay, Roland of Gilead, uh, Jake from New York, or Jake Chambers from New York, Eddie Dean from New York, Susanna from New York, and then
And
but Oi from Midworld,
from
So
Midworld, yep.
it's like this tie to where they're at. I think they're technically headed towards a place called End World. So at the very beginning of the book, they're in a place called Outworld, and then they're in Midworld, and then they're in once they're on the path of the beam, they're in Midworld, and then
Okay.
they're headed towards End World. That's my understanding of it, at least.
Let's talk about the beam. I loved
Yeah,
the concept of the beam and how it's like once you kind of it's kind of like the air conditioning, right? Like you don't hear it till it goes off. You're not even aware of it, but it's all around you constantly all the time. And that was like he did a really good job of stating like once you see it, you can't unsee it. But
yeah.
before that, you didn't even know that it existed, you know? It's just a really cool and clever way of giving them direction.
Direction. Yeah. What'd you think about the giant 70-foot cyborg bear? It's a cool
Oh,
sentence.
Shadik?
Shardik.
I know, right? When I was Shardik? Yeah, Shardik.
Yeah,
Um,
it's based on the Richard Adams book. Um, like I think it's in connection with Watership Down. I don't know if
oh
you ever
really?
read that. Yeah,
No, I haven't
it's
read
like
that.
it's pretty loose. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, no. I mean, when I was reading the summary, it was hard for me not to like giggle and be like, "This is awesome." But there's a 70-foot cyborg bear that they get attacked by, and
He's
I
also
almost,
got parasites coming out of him too. He's got like little worms
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
he was a vehicle to serve, to show them the portal to like get where they needed to go to find the path of the beam, and then also to show them that the whole world is kind of in this state of disarray. Like every world is dematerializing and everything is breaking down and rotting. And he was just like, he served as an excellent vehicle and then just also a vehicle for awesome, like a 70-foot
Yeah.
cyborg bear attacking the party. And just like, and then also another vehicle thing that he did was Susanna was like, she took him down, you know, so she got a
Yeah.
whole lot of confidence out of that. And Roland was like, no, the mental picture of her like on his shoulder or on his hip
Oh,
with like a gun, like
there's a Michael Whelan painting that's really popular of Susanna on Roland's shoulders with a big giant revolver shooting at that bear, and it's like one of the best depictions of anything that's going on in these books. Besides a couple more things that we're going to see soon, but yeah, Susanna, what did you think about the like the chant that they do? Like,
um
I do not shoot with my eye, or no, with my hand. He who shoots with his hand has forgotten the face of their
the face of his
father. I
father. I
shoot
shoot
with
with
my
my
eye,
mind.
with my mind. Yeah, I can't remember
Yes.
exactly
So it
what
has
it is.
ever been, Susanna Dean. I do not kill with my gun. She who kills with her gun has forgotten the face of her father. I kill with my heart.
And then
Then
even
kill them
Eddie,
for your father's sake. Kill them all.
and then even Eddie, when he's killing like those little machines that are kind of around Shardik's little lair, he's not in a mindset, right? It's very clear that he's freaking out. He doesn't like this whole situation, but then he starts saying it, and King writes that like this coldness comes over him, and I thought that was really really cool because the coldness that Eddie is feeling is the coldness that Roland is always feeling, right? That coldness is the reason that Roland let Jake drop. That coldness is the reason that Roland is continuing to lie to Jake, which I think is something else that we should talk about. Um, because how heart wrenching is it to have Jake come back through this door into Midworld and hug Roland and say, "You're not going to let me drop again, right?" And Roland is like, "I'm never ever going to let you drop again." But then the very last sentence of that chapter is, he might
Like, but
let him
will I?
drop it.
Yeah, he's
Like,
like
God
second
damn
guessing
it,
his own.
Roland.
Come
God
on,
damn it, Roland.
Roland. Come on,
Yeah.
Roland.
But it's true. There's that coldness, right? The coldness
Right.
that was conditioned into Roland in
He's an
his upbringing.
operator.
Yeah, exactly. He's the last gunslinger. Like, this is all things serve the beam. All things serve the tower. Like, this is his mission. And the Katet, he doesn't know yet whether or not the Katet is a means to an end. He doesn't know whether or not, like, how much the tower supersedes the connections that he's making along the way. He has to make that call for himself, and he has to be cold about it. He's been taught he has to be cold about these kinds of situations, and so with that kind of chant or mantra that Roland is teaching to Susanna and Eddie, they're getting in on that too. But I don't think that they quite understand it yet. But they're gunslingers too. He's training them up as gunslingers. It's just beautiful the way that all weaves together.
Yeah. And it's a very smart thing to do just in real life as well. Like train a bodily reaction to like a verbal thing that you say. And so like when you do this action, you say these words and then you train a automated response to your body to relax and breathe or whatever it is, clear your mind. And then over a while, it becomes so associated in your brain that you can just be like, I do not shoot with my whatever, speak the mantra, and then your body will kind of follow and you'll go into that cold state of just being an operator, which was, like I said, the mental picture was awesome. That scene was also disgusting. I almost like actually retched because Eddie is covered in like little worms and bear snot and like,
Yeah.
and then right after made me laugh, which is impressive if you can make me puke and laugh in like 20 words. Because he comes face to face with a bear and he thinks to himself like, I have never come face to face with absolute lunacy, and then immediately amends that and be like, well, I have looked into the face of that world class B, Detta Walker.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and I think I've got a pretty good handle on it, but I just want to hear your thoughts on it. What does remember the face of your father mean to you?
um. I mean, maybe it's like you haven't been trained to the point of expertise yet. You know, like your betters have, your peers have, your elders have. Like remember how much farther you have to go. Remember, um, you know, the there's a lot of like loyalty involved in Gilead. There's a lot of propriety and things like that. And like Roland's dad, Stephen Deshane, is held to a very high degree of respect. So that's kind of like how I look at it. It's more like a respect for your elders kind of thing. It's like fairly clear to me. But I mean, what do you think it is?
I thought of that like a surface level, yes. It's like a remember to respect your elders, but more than that, it's like a you are the summation of the past events. So for good or bad, mistakes and wins and losses, you are the result of all of those. And so remember what made you who you are, and don't ever let something that you have to do right now make you forget where you came from or like the foundational values that you are built upon.
Oh, I like that a lot. I never really thought about it like that. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's
cool.
just like a really cool, like I don't know, just a really like deep. It's like remember the face of your father.
For your father's sake.
Yeah, for your
Yeah.
father's sake, you have forgotten the face of your. He like chastises people sometimes, like you have forgotten the face of your father. It's like people are like, what? Like no one else knows what it even kind of means.
I know. If can you imagine if you're just out in public and somebody said that to you? It
Yeah,
would stop me in my tracks. I'd be like, "Did I?
dude.
Did I?"
Next time someone cuts me off and like a line at something, I'm gonna be like, "Excuse me, you have forgotten the face of your father, sir."
What if
And
they're big Dark Tower fans though, and then they're so stoked and you become friends, even
that
though
would be
they
the
cut
best
in front of
result.
you in line? I've
Yeah,
been
they would be
saying,
reminded of propriety and I'd get a friend. Okay, so after the bear, and they go back to the bear's lair and they find the portal to the beam. There's like a box and a door that Eddie presses his ear up against, and he hears whispers of death and desolation and emptiness. And Roland pulls him back, and uh, I didn't get it at all. He says something about like walls being silent and the halls of the dead and everything being forgotten in the ruins of ruin. And then Roland says to Eddie, yeah, no, nothing from my world is doing well. So it's like maybe Eddie was able to peer or at least hear into his world or something. I don't know.
so the thing with this area of Midworld, um, just this world in general, at least to my understanding, there's a lot. There's a lot to all of this, and I'm kind of still refreshing a lot of my memory on this. But basically, there was like these old ones, right? And they had a handle on technology. They were getting really, really technologically advanced. The tower was part of it, um, but they kind of went past any point of like responsibility. Like they were going in between dimensions to go watch disasters take place. You know what I mean? For like entertainment
Right.
and stuff. And then as they kind of like took it too far, And then as kind of a um, I don't know, kind of like recompensating for like the damage that they had done. They kind of like built these like artificial portals and beams to kind of like keep the tower up. But since then, the reason people are saying the world has moved on is because like the all of that's now breaking down, right? So like when Eddie like puts his ear up against that thing, as to my understanding at least, it's like that is the world moving on. Like that's like all the technology's dying. Like Blaine is going crazy. There's still remnants of different pop culture and things that the old ones had brought back through dimensions and stuff. That's why there's like that ZZ Top song that's been playing over and over again, and then over the years people have misinterpreted it, called it the God drums and things like that. Um, the world literally is moving on. It basically
Right.
ended. It's in the process of ending, and the tower and the beams that support it are breaking down. So like that was kind of an example of the technology, the advancements that the old ones had made, like kind of breaking down. That was like Eddie's interaction with that. That's my understanding of it, at least. Could be
Okay,
getting
that
something
makes sense
wrong.
to me.
Yeah.
So a few things. One, King does a really good job when he tells us a series of events. He's like a really good YouTuber. Who will say like the best part of their video, the funniest, or like the what's the punchline. They'll say the punchline first,
The
and then you're like,
hook.
wait, what? Yeah, the hook. And then
Yeah.
they'll go back and be like, but on this person, they'll be like, you'll hear somebody be like, $200 in 20 minutes, not bad. And they'll be like, hi, I'm Ed, your entrepreneur guy, and it's like it hooks you right away. And he does that when he's telling his like a series of events. He'll go to just the juice, and then right before you kind of find out what happens fully, he'll go back and then retrace his steps, or you'll see it from another person's perspective, and he kind of fills in all the gaps leading up to it. And it's just, oh man, it's a great way of keeping me engaged at least.
Yeah, he messes with that a lot because he's not necessarily showing parallel events as they're happening simultaneously. He kind of backs up a little bit, right? He doesn't do it all the time, but
And not in
especially
a confusing way.
no, it's not confusing at all. But it's just nice to know. It can be a little bit jarring sometimes because you're like, oh, that hasn't happened yet. Okay, so this is where we are. It takes like maybe a paragraph or two to like really understand exactly where you're at. But especially when things are really gaining in momentum, like the last scene in Lud when Gasher has Jake and Roland and Oy are trying to go grab him and stuff, and Eddie and Susanna are off dealing with their stuff, and there's a lot going on. It's jumping around, and Stephen King really likes um, writing in short chapters,
Yeah.
like really, really. I don't
Sometimes
even
one word.
yeah, or like one word, one sentence, maybe one paragraph, but then he just moves it along and switches points of view, which I mean, it'll make you keep reading.
Think about like the last part of like the Phantom Menace or something. We have all these different groups that are all having a goal that's very important to the storyline. It's constantly jumping back and forth to like gunfight to the Gungans fighting over here. Queen Amidala and her group are trying to like go up and do whatever. It's like going back and forth. So it's just a really cool way of doing that in book form with the jumping of chapters, which I think is really cool. Okay, I have another question, and I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something because the bookshop that Jake goes to, where he gets the riddle book and then the book about the trains, the owner's name is Calvin Tower. And Roland reacts to this when he's hearing about it. And then we don't hear anything about why he reacted to that. Was it just that
Yeah,
his last name was Tower, or am I supposed to know something beyond that at this point?
like it's one of those things that seems really significant, and Roland really does, it puts he's perturbed, shall we say, about
I
Calvin
thought it was more of a
Tower.
surprise.
Yeah, surprise. I mean, you saw it in Drawing of the Three where Eddie Eddie's boss,
Balazar?
Balazar, the place where he does business is in the Leaning Tower, right? Um, so there's multiple references, um, and there's even stuff in New York where like they're in Turtle Bay, which is like a
Right.
neighborhood in New York, and then the other end of the beam that the bear is on is the turtle, and then there's like the
Right.
poem that Roland knows, like the see the turtle of enormous girth on his shell he holds the earth. There's a lot of interplay between what I'm going to go ahead and call dimensions here, and it's expanded even more in other Stephen King books, which is just a whole other thing we can get into at some point. But yeah, like there's just a lot being carried over, and I think that I don't really. I could be wrong about this, but I think that was just one of King's ways of showing that.
Right. Create like an anchor point to be like, these worlds are all connected.
Yeah, in weird ways,
Right.
Um, but also there's such thing as coincidence, I mean, there's such thing
Absolutely.
and what is coincidence and what's not? Like what I mean, all things serve the tower, all things serve the beam, there's a lot in that sentence, right? It's
Right.
it's,
There was
it's
also
really
such good writing. Okay, so King is saying, yes, most of these things have a lot of deeper meaning, but he also reminds us with this little awesome tidbit that some things don't. And it's that Jake's father only has a middle initial, which doesn't stand for anything. It's just a letter, is his middle name. And it's like, I think it's King's way of very cleverly being like, while most things is dripping in multiple layers of meaning, not everything is. Some
not
things
everything.
are just what they are,
Yeah,
which I just thought was really cool.
Jake's dad.
Oh
It's
my
just like
God.
totally gacked, like all the time. Just the depiction of him, his hair is all messed up, and he just like doesn't care about this kid at all. He just is sick of being inconvenienced by all this kid's bullshit.
Right. Can you give me status? That's all I care about.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh my God. Even their terms that his parents use, they use like they were proponents of like pharmaceutical enhancement or like the quality of life being enhanced by pharmaceutical like innovation or something tricky like that. And it was like, that's a slippery slope to just being a drug addict.
Yeah. Yeah. His mom is like they're both on drugs, basically.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah. What did you think about Jake's mindset while he was in New York? I mean, obviously he's got this kind of split situation going on with um that's very similar to what Roland's going through. But I thought it was interesting that Jake really wants to go back to Midworld because Roland didn't necessarily express that he really wants Jake to come back, right? But Jake, you see through his perspective that he wants nothing more than for the next door that he opens to lead back to Midworld. And what do you think? What? Why do you think he wants to go back so badly? Do you think it's his home life, his school? He's not happy about it, or is something else pulling him?
I think it's Ka at the end of the day. Ka is
Oh,
pulling him to it.
yeah.
But his life is not super great. And if there's anyone who's kind of looking for a change and maybe something to inject a little meaning or be a part of something bigger than themselves, his life would certainly be in want of that. So I think it's kind of that. And also, it's peace for him. Like he basically took a hit of acid and didn't really know it and then is going crazy for the next like 2 weeks and it's just like I need a way to get this to end,
Right. Yeah,
and that
totally.
door is the like physical representation of like peace, inner peace for him.
Right. It's like he knew that as soon as he did that, it would stop. It would go
Right.
away. What did you think about the rose in the vacant lot?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know what the
that might not
rose.
be the question to ask right now. Actually, now that I
I,
think about it, it's really
okay, so
cool. Yeah.
what it mean to me was because it's in like a
What it
vacant lot.
mean?
So something was built there, destroyed, and then now new life has been found. So what it means to me is hope, right? Like, yes, the world is in a state of like de-evolution and breaking down, and it's corrupted, and its systems are failing, but there is hope. And if certain things, which I'm super unclear as to what can happen, then we can have flowers flourish once again. And that rose is kind of like a representation of that, I think.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, without giving any spoilers away, I will say there are things, and it's kind of close to what I was saying before, but there are things that kind of mirror other things. So just keep that in mind. I'm just going to throw the word twinner out. That doesn't mean anything to you
Twinner
right now. Doesn't mean anything to you right now. And it
almost
won't,
sounds dirty.
I guess. But yeah, like just remember that like King is really trying to show us that we're not just operating on one plane of existence right now. You know what I mean? Like the tower is the nexus of all universes. The tower is the nexus of all dimensions, of all realities. And reality is very big and very, very complicated.
Yes.
And so there's a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't have asked you about the roast, but I like
No,
that
no,
we
no.
got to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good. Okay, the key though, I might have been standing again. I don't really remember, but the scene where he's like shaving it down, trying to get it perfect, and there's Jake is in this haunted house with the
Yeah,
house itself becoming a demon creature and trying to like, oh my gosh, I was
yeah,
just like,
that's
go, go! I was yelling, I was sweaty.
Yeah, I mean that's like one of the best parts of it too, because Eddie and Henry in 1977 were looking at that house, and it had been mentioned earlier in the book that this house was really terrifying. It's it's been just repossessed or whatever. It's just in shambles. Um, Even Henry is really scared of the house. It's creepy. Jake just walks right in there, and you, as the reader, you're just like, "Are you
Oh
seriously
my
going into this
god,
house right
you've
now?"
never seen a
And
horror movie?
Jake walks in. There's spiders land on him. There's a bunch of spiders in the house. I'm
Red
not.
flag.
Yeah,
Red
I
flag.
mean,
Red flag.
like
Red flag.
the way that King described the weight of the spider, and like Jake fell down and it broke apart like a warm, like
Oh
cracked
my
egg
god.
on his back. Like there's the King we love. There it
Oh
is.
my god. I was cleaning. I used to manage this mattress store, and we had these big eaves out. This was in Eugene, where it's a very moist climate, and there's a lot of bugs everywhere. And I was cleaning the eaves once with this big long brush, and I broke open. I'm not a big spider guy at all, and I broke open a sack of spiders,
Oh man.
and it rained down on me. And I have curly
Whoa.
hair, and it's like if shit gets stuck in there, like I'll find leaves in it like hours after I was outside, and I didn't even know because it just like stuck in there. In high school, kids like threw shit into my hair. You could stick it if you were a good throw.
The
You could
paper
get the pen to
airplane
like stick, you know.
pen.
The pen always sucks. I was like, dude, you actually missed and just gouged my head. Thank you. Um, but that just like reminded me of having those spiders, like thousands of little spiders all over me, and that is my nightmare. And I have some personal experience with that, and it was awful.
Man, yeah, you really don't like spiders.
I really hate spiders.
One thing that I didn't really like about that sequence is that Roland comes in and saves Jake. I wish that Jake had just been able to get out of there. Like I think that I mean Roland coming in and saving him makes sense because he had already like let him go or whatever. But
Right.
I wish Jake had had that agency. He'd already gone through this haunted house. He'd already done all this stuff. He got his pants ripped off and everything. It would have just been cool to see Jake like jump through there, instead of having to have Roland come in and like lift him out of there. I don't know. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, give it to Jake. Come on.
Yep.
But that's just
I,
that's a nitpick,
no, I
obviously.
agree with you. I kind of was a little disappointed too. I was like, I mean, it's cool what they're doing because like he needs to rebuild trust in Roland, and he's like,
Totally.
okay, he's
Yeah.
got him. But at the same time, you're right. He deserved that win because he's 10,
Everything.
11.
Yeah, he did
Like
everything. He
that
left
is
school.
insane.
Yeah, I don't know. That was like one part of that's just like the part of that sequence where it almost like killed the suspense for me because it's like Roland's here, obviously it's gonna be fine,
Right. Roland's got it.
like but yeah, the house monster
Oh my
just
goodness.
and Jake's realization that the house is like kind of like turning in on itself and becoming a bigger
Yeah.
monster. And then when King kind of switches the POV for like 4 paragraphs to just random people that are on the street watching
Yeah.
what's going on, it was just such a nice touch to everything because this is actually happening. This isn't happening in
Right.
Jake's head. This isn't happening in Roland's head. It's not happening in Midworld. It's happening here in our plane of existence in 1977. There's other people watching it, and this
People on the
house
streets can hear
is
this house screaming as it becomes alive.
yeah.
And what a cool like monster, right? There wasn't a
Yeah.
monster in the house. The house is the monster. It was just great.
What did you think about Roland and Eddie and Susanna and Jake and Oi happening across like this population of people that are still living outside of Lud? They kind of it's like their Imladris, their Rivendell almost like moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
What
it
were your
was
thoughts on that?
actually a little council of Elrond, actually, now that you say
Yeah, they
that.
get fed, they get hospitality, or like maybe it's like Lothlorien or something, but you know what I'm saying? It's like their resting
Yeah.
point before they go on to the next big thing.
It was nice as it served for like a little break. It was like a nice little like almost a palate cleanser, that you were
Yeah,
just like, oh
vibe check.
cool, like there's still good. Yeah, a vibe check.
Yeah,
Perfect. It's a vibe check. And also it served a really cool purpose of kind of giving us the reader the weight of Roland's gunslinger position. Like these people
yeah,
exalted
yeah.
him as like a prophet or like like a just a very highly regarded thing. And we didn't I didn't at least kind of understand the full weight of what he was until I saw other people giving him that level of respect. And I was like, okay, he's part of a very respected like order.
Yeah, so they're like knights, you know,
Yeah.
kind of. They're basically like knights.
Yeah, they're like paladins.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, it's like a knight that fights for good.
Yeah, and it gave us some world building too. We got to see into the lives of people that are living in this area. They're right outside of Lud, but they all haven't gone insane or anything. But they can hear the drums.
There was also a really interesting conversation after they left, which was Jake asking, I think the group, but Eddie responds like, "Well, why didn't we insert something that they could have done to help the community?" And
Yeah,
Eddie was like,
yeah.
"Well, then we would have done this." And then it's like, "Well, it's not really cool that they're out hunting. We could probably do that too." And then, well, we could also build this little wall that would help them protect themselves. And this string, one thing would have led to a bunch of other things that would have delayed their ultimate journey. So they kind of had to make a call of like, what is the bigger good?
Yeah, but it's such a weird part of their journey where they don't even know what the bigger good is.
I
You know,
know. I
it's
don't know.
interesting. Well, I mean, and that's some of that coldness that I was talking about before. And like, I mean, Eddie is really coming to trust Roland, in his weird Eddie way that he trusts people. I also
Right.
still believe that Eddie is replacing Henry with Roland, and he also sees Jake as himself, and the Henry to Jake also. There's like a weird kind of like thing going on there. There's a lot of
Right.
like brotherly love going on there. But yeah, Eddie spelled it out really well right there. But it's also like Jake had a really good point there because it's almost like, why not just stay here though? Where are we going? You know, like Roland hasn't done a especially good job at explaining like why exactly they need to get to the tower. Like Roland needs to, I mean, because Eddie and Susanna are ostensibly trying to get back to their world. That's not really as much of a thing anymore as the Katek keeps growing and as the journey keeps going on. But
Right.
it's still a little bit like, Eddie pulls a gun on Roland multiple times in this book. One of my favorite lines is like when Eddie says, "I'm so fucking sick of your jive, man." Like
Yeah.
he's so sick of Roland's like how cryptic he is and how he's not willing to he's being withholding, or at least Eddie feels like Roland is being withholding, but
Hmm.
Roland doesn't even really know. Like Roland just knows he has to get to the tower. So there's a lot of mystery still here. So it's very valid of Jake to say those people were super nice to us. They fed us. They obviously need our help. Why don't we just hang out there? But it's equally
Hmm.
valid of Eddie to say, like, if we stay there, we're never going to leave. You know?
Right. And we needed a little bit of breathing room and for the characters to kind of lock in the lessons and the craziness that they've gone through. Like there was a really cool conversation between Eddie and Roland afterwards that was where Eddie was like, "Hey man, like you don't need to trick me. Like I'm here. I'm here because I want to
Yeah,
be. If
yeah.
you died, I would still go to the tower because I am in this and I'm committed 100%. And you don't need to lead me or trick me or create some sort of like carrot reward system. Just know that I'm with you. And it was like a really just cool like thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Eddie has a dream, kind of towards the beginning of the book where he sees the tower, and that was kind of that was
Yeah.
almost like a clincher for Eddie, where up until that point he very strongly just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
He's interested to it a certain extent, but he really wanted to go home, and now it's almost like I have to see this thing, whatever this thing is. I had a glimpse of it in this dream. What the hell is this? Yeah,
Yeah. Which was cool. Also, it leads back to Roland going insane. It needed to happen because the group were following Roland up at that point. There was no, but then Roland became kind of not the guy in the driver's seat anymore
yeah.
because he's like, I'm going insane. You guys you need to take like responsibility and kind of lead this. And it was a cool way for them to be more committed to the journey and the story overall was to kind of remove him from being the leader and force them to rise to the occasion, which I thought was really cool and clever.
I wanted to ask you, there's a part towards the end of this book where a mysterious person comes and kind of revives the TikTok man who Jake shot in the face. He kind of like pulls back his skin or whatever. That was weird. Uh,
Oh,
yeah. But what do you think
uh,
about all that?
okay. Well, let me answer that with a question here because I even was kind of surprised when I was reading your summary, and it was like this person that the man in black reminded or told him that he was going to have to overcome or something, and I thought that that was the man in black, but it's not.
Who even is the man in black,
Who
man?
even? Okay,
Yeah,
okay, good,
like
good answer. Because who? Yeah, okay, sure. But
there's like Merlin, there's Walter O'Dim,
yeah,
there's the man in black, there's Randall
I
Flagg, there's
fully thought it was the man in black the whole
yeah.
time. But then in reading the summary that you wrote, which was very good by the way, I loved it. Um, I was like, oh, okay, I guess it was not. And then it did remind me of the cards and him like talking about these, beings or people, characters that he would have to overcome. So I was like, oh, I guess that wasn't the Man in Black, but like, mm,
Yeah, I was like,
was it not the Man in Black?
in that chapter, he's Fanon the Wizard. So we've got a whole other
Yeah,
name
Fanon
here.
the Wizard.
Yeah, they must not draw closer to the tower than they are now. So, yeah, yeah, we'll find more. Don't even worry about it.
I'm very curious as to how the TikTok man is getting out of that city because it was like gassed.
I think they were underground when it was gassed, and maybe the gas dissipates. You know what I mean? They weren't like in the streets where that happened.
Yeah, but I mean, so everyone running out of the because like it starts panic in the below undercity and everyone's like running to the top. If they just would have stayed down there, they would have been okay.
Maybe parts of it or something.
Okay.
But I mean, he's a wizard.
Yeah, he's a wizard. He just like created a globe of
Magic.
protection. Yeah,
Magic.
magic.
Yeah, what'd you think about Gasher? The old
Oh
pal
my
Gasher.
Gosh, what a slimy old like conniving like
What a
so
cool
good.
position to put Jake in though for the reader at least because like there's
Yeah.
multiple points where Gasher's just like, I'm about to die. I don't give a shit. Like I
Yeah.
will kill you right now. Like it's just really
No
yeah.
F's given.
Like when he's
Like,
facing off with Roland on the bridge, he's only looking at Roland. I remember that line specifically because he doesn't break eye contact with Roland, and he says something to the effect of, "You know that I've got nothing to lose," and Roland
Yeah.
just says, "Yeah, I know."
like I will kill us all right here
Like,
just to
this
make
is-
a point.
Yeah, this is. Then even Eddie says, "Why did you do that?" And Roland's just like, "Dude, you know, we all knew." Like that guy,
Right.
that guy
He
was
is
gonna.
beyond.
Yeah.
I
which is-
really liked how that whole turn of events ended because whereas Jake wasn't able to or wasn't like allowed to kind of seize the victory and have his moment in the house as Roland had to save him, Jake did it
Oh yeah.
in that scene. Like he shot the TikTok man in the face. He
In the
he
face.
saved himself in the face, and he's 11 again, which is like, whoa, rough.
Yeah, this 11-year-old fucking rocks. Like
Dude, he
goes
rocks,
into his dad's
yeah.
office and takes his gun and the bullets and the magazine and everything, and knows to even like pack them separately. And so it's just,
Right?
he's
I was
a
like,
very
wow, what a responsible
industrious
gun
kid.
owner. And then just the fact that he had the balls to go into the haunted mansion, like we've
Yeah.
all encountered those places that are like
Oh, I don't go into stuff
maybe
like that.
actually
No.
thin places between the realms, and you're
No.
like, this place is dark. This is an evil place, and you feel it in your bones. It's like to flee. You can feel it in your soul. Jake feels that, acknowledges that, and then proceeds forward. And I was like, this is the definition of courage.
So as we start closing out the episode, I want to talk about the main event of this book, besides Oi, which Oi is the actual main event.
God, I love
but
Oi.
I love Oi so much. And he just gets better and better.
Oi.
But the Blaine the Mono, Charlie the Choo Choo.
Oh my
The-
goodness.
I want to hear all your thoughts about Blaine.
I don't know why. Because I've never been like really I've been very indifferent to trains. There's people who are super into trains. I'm not really one of them. But now trains have been kind of moved into like a clown category in my brain.
Right. Yeah.
Like that was scary. He was like
evil.
but not even evil. He was insane, which is a whole
Yeah,
different
totally,
breed of
totally.
evil.
Yeah,
which
no,
is just
for
like
sure.
sometimes we just like some men just want to see the world burn, sort of like evil. Like it's like an indifference. I'm just doing it for fun.
Yeah, like Pennywise in It is, in my opinion, like evil incarnate, right?
Yes.
He's fear incarnate. But Blaine, yeah, you're right. He's just completely he is evidence of a world that has moved on. He is
Yes.
technology that has been abused, left to rot, essentially.
Forgotten.
You know, he's like the distillation of all the bad decisions that the old ones had made into one sentient being. And props to Stephen King for coming up with essentially like a network that Blaine was operating on by being able to control this whole city and everything. In the, like 1990, right? I mean, it's not like he created the internet or anything, but it was just like it's some pretty cool technology for a book that was probably being written in 1989, 1990.
That was definitely ahead of its time. The trains have been moved to the clown category in my brain because that train truly scared me. Like he was just like the shuddery. It's the sort of evil that is almost, in my opinion, like kind of the scariest because you can't reason with it.
No, not at all. Well, except for
Like
Roland, kind of does, but not
Roland
really.
chastises it.
Yeah, it's a difference. Yeah,
He like outflexes it,
right. He's not
and then
reasoning with him exactly. Yeah,
right, and he doesn't say no to the situation. He says yes, and he says,
interesting.
okay,
Yeah,
if you want to play a game, let's play this game, and I will actually beat you at it. How about that, Train? And that's exactly what the Train is looking for. He's going to go down
yeah. He doesn't want to
anyway.
be
So he
bored.
loves this. Yeah, he wants a life and death situation. He's already put himself there. And so it's like, it was really
Hmm.
smart what Roland did, but also I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
And then Little Blaine made it all. It made it even scarier, in my opinion, because you've got
Yeah,
this
what
little
is Little
voice.
Blaine?
Um, I'm not really. I don't, That was
Like
a
a
really high pitched
subsystem?
noise.
It was high
Sorry, I was like
pitched.
laughing at myself. Um, I think it's like whatever's left over of what Blaine was supposed to be like. You know, this kind of more amicable, um, like like almost like user interface type thing,
Okay.
like the leftover kind of personality
Right.
that
He was the
that
graphical user interface. Okay. Okay.
yeah. But it was a lot scarier though because little Blaine is just like he's gonna wake up. Don't wake him up. He's gonna be so mad, and it's just like, wait, what is gonna wake up? What is going on right now? And then
Right.
he's
Like
just
this
like, who
computer that's
are
been
you?
hiding from
Yeah,
the other computer. Like, ugh.
yeah, and you know he's speaking through the speakers all through the city and everything, and just oh my god. Then the one of my favorite parts of this entire series, one of the most visually stimulating parts in this entire series, one of the most immersive, most vivid, is when Blaine kind of like makes the inside of the train transparent and they're basically floating along tracks. And then
Right.
he makes it look like the ground is zooming up to everybody. He's just zooming in on the ground, obviously, but the way that
Just
King
magnifying
describes it,
everything.
yeah. And then you can see these like pipes that are like in the ground that these creatures are kind of like dipping into for like sustenance. There's this greenish bluish glow out of it. It's like, what the hell is under the ground right now? What is going on here?
Right.
There's these pterodactyl things flying through the air. There's all these creatures everywhere. This total wasteland. That's what it is. It's just, oh my god, it's so
Right.
good.
And the coolest thing is like, we think of a wasteland that's like no life being there, but no, more powerful than that is where like a twisted, kind of like ravaged, like the afterthought of life still holds on. It's like even worse, It's just like, oh
Yeah, he said it was worse than a nuclear bomb.
yeah.
Worse. The old ones wreaked havoc on this area, and now there's just these pterodactyl things flying around and
Oh my gosh, that scene, you're right, it was the most vivid, especially when they just leave the city and they go like blasting off the cliff face kinda and like poof,
yeah,
and they're like out into the wastelands. And it was also interesting that the whole book is called The Wastelands, which obviously they're going to cross just like I think anyway in the train. But they didn't actually get to it until the last 20 pages of the book.
yeah. I think it meant more just like that's where they're headed. That's what the
Totally.
book is. The book is ultimately about the wastelands and
Right. And the
their
folly
eventual.
of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, I'm excited to get to Wizard and Glass because Wizard. I have a lot of people say Wizard and Glass is their favorite. That seems to be at least from the reading that I've done on different forums and stuff. Because I went pretty hard into the Dark Tower for a little while there, and now I'm getting way back into it again. Um, Wastelands or Wizard and Glass seems to be the kind of crowd favorite. I I don't want to give anything away, but I don't like it as much as the Wastelands, but I think you will. I think you'll like it
Okay.
quite a bit.
I don't know how he could do better than this. I was sad when it ended,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's a good book.
those 600 pages really flew by.
Yeah, in fact, it's been difficult for me to not read the next one before doing this podcast because I finished it a couple days ago, and I wanted to read on, but I was like, I don't want to give anything away. I want to go in from kind of a place of just there in the story
Totally.
and
Yeah,
talk about my
and you should
thoughts and
have
not
too
know
because
anything.
I will say at least that we pick up right from that moment.
Which is
In
great to
Wizard and
hear. That's
Glass.
my favorite sort of thing.
Oh yeah, totally. Actually, I mean, the first like the prologue is just the last few pages of the Wastelands.
Oh, perfect.
Pretty cool.
Stevens, did you read Stevens like afterward? that he wrote.
Not for
It
the
was really
Wastelands.
cool. He was like, this story, like my best works, I'm not even writing it. It's like pulled from me. Like I'm
Yeah.
a spectator along with you. And he kind of writes it from like a who even knows what will happen? Will even everyone get to the end? I don't know, and I can not assure you that everyone will. And like it was like a really cool tell you lots of things and tell you nothing simultaneously, and also thanking the readers for like being along with him on this journey. It was just a really cool little chunk of words at the end there, and I just thought it was meaningful.
Yeah, he says books which write themselves as this one did for the most part must also be allowed to end themselves. And I can only assure you, reader, that Roland and his band have come to one of the crucial border crossings in their story, and we must leave them here for a while at the customs station, answering questions and filling out forms. Ah, that's so great.
So good.
They wrote that in 1991, and everyone had to wait 6 years for the next one. But at least
Oh, that's
he was putting stuff
brutal.
out between that, though. I mean, he put out
Was he okay?
like the Green Mile and Desperation, and I can't remember what else came out in that period, but some good stuff.
One thing that before we wrap up here was also just like a high point for me was in a lot of books that have like a romantic, two characters are having a romance, and they don't at the beginning of the series, so it develops with over the course of the story. There's a lot of usually that's used as like a a trigger or a lever in the story to like they're going to be divided at some point. And maybe that'll happen onward, but I'm really glad that it didn't happen in this book. It was nothing beyond like a aw for
Yeah,
me. This like it added like some like warmth to the story, and I just really loved the fact that they were kind of they never hated each other. They were never divided. They were always
uh,
with each other and in love with each other, and it was all good. Like I'm glad that after the scene where they get Jake through the portal, that there wasn't like a "what were you doing with that incubus" sort of thing. I'm glad that didn't happen.
no,
Um,
it needed to happen.
yeah, it's just heartwarming.
Yeah, Eddie and Susanna are fantastic. They're great.
Yeah,
We love Eddie and Susanna, but we love all of them except for Roland.
it's funny. Susanna is so Susanna is an awesome character because she is like you'd think that the lack of legs would be a huge detriment, but actually it's a strength because as they're carrying her and kind of suffering and slogging the miles when they can't push her, even when they are pushing her, it's harder than someone walking with them. It's building strength in them. It's they're like wearing like weighted armor like Goku or something. It's like they're being toughened up by their like the weakness is actually a strength. And it's just a
Yeah,
really cool way of being like hell yes.
yeah, Susanna, you're gonna like Susanna, especially in book 5. That's the biggest spoiler I'll give you for
Is
this
that the book
whole.
of the Song of Susanna?
No, that's Wolves of the Kala,
Oh,
and
okay.
then Song of Susanna is number 6. I don't know where we're supposed to read Wind Through the Keyhole. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to read it between books 6 and 7, but let me look it up real quick.
Even after you've read them all, you don't know when?
Well, I haven't read Wind Through the Keyhole.
Oh, really?
No, it came out
I did not
after
know that.
Wind Through the Keyhole came out after the 7th Dark Tower book. Um,
Oh, okay.
so
Also, are you and I bet your listeners are wondering as well, are you going to read another Stephen King book in addition to this for your one every month this
I
thing?
don't
Because like
think
this is
so.
clearly
No.
checking that box,
Yeah, it's checking it. Yeah, I didn't know if rereads counted, but I don't know. I don't really feel like
Well, you're
reading
also
any.
reading
I don't want to read 2 Stephen King books. Or I don't want. I mean, yeah, November I'll have read like 2 or maybe even 3 Stephen King books. So yeah, I don't really
and
want
the
to
Wind
read.
Through the Keyhole is a new one. So like
Hey, yeah, that's the one. I
ding.
There we go. Boom. But yeah,
And we're sleeping good tonight.
so somebody said on Reddit here, you can. So the general consensus is to read it after book 7, the very first time you go through, but on subsequent reads go between books 4 and 5. So I think we should just do it between books 4 and 5.
4 and 5. Okay, interesting.
For some reason, I thought it was between. When I got the box set, it was between books 6 and 7. So,
Same.
um, but I think most people would consider it to be book 4.5, like it's supposed to go with
Okay.
book 4. And if it's about what I think it's about, then it makes sense. So yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. Cool.
All right, I think that'll do it for us today here. That was Wastelands. Wow, such an awesome book. Jeez.
It was an insane ride.
It's so nice to reread stuff like
And
this, and I mean I know so much about the Dark Tower, and it's very close to my heart. But if there was one way that I could read this series again in an even better fashion than I had before, it's reading it with my best friend. So damn.
dude, like always, I cannot agree more. This is so much fun. I'm so excited. Like when I'm reading the books, I'm like, oh, I'm so stoked to talk about this with Evan, and just the knowledge that I get to share it with you and everyone listening is just makes the whole experience like more meaningful and kind of I take it more seriously kind of when I'm reading it, and it serves my to benefit my experience as a reader a lot. So thank you everyone, and thank you Evan for being awesome.
Well, I appreciate that, Chad. You're awesome too. And you
Uh,
look great.
you look great.
Everybody, thank you so much for being part of this episode and for reading along this amazing series. Right here with us. It's so good. It's only going to get better. It's going to get a little more weird. So buckle in. Well, Chad and I will be with you for this whole ride. You can look at the Discord, go in on the Patreon, like just get in there in the conversation. There's a lot of conversation to be had. And even not connected to book reviews kill, like go check out the wiki. There's a huge Dark Tower Wikipedia. There's a huge community that's not even just our community, although our community is the best, obviously.
Duh.
But go
Don't
in
go to the other
and
ones. Just go to
go in
ours.
and look at some stuff. This is one of those series that you want to geek out on it. You want to get really invested in everything, and because I promise you, it pays off in a lot of ways, and also it doesn't pay off in some ways.
Can I make a prediction before we
Sure.
end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Roland is going to die at the end of this story. And I think that Eddie, Susanna, and Jake will end as a family unit, them raising Jake and living out their lives somewhere in happiness, hopefully with Oy by their side, though I think he's going to be sacrificed in an awesome way.
Okay. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, don't say anything.
I'm a brick wall.
The only response I need as we end here from you is the response to long days and pleasant nights.
May you have twice the number. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. And of course, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.